members of the Electoral College who go against their party's nominee are called, quote, faithless electors. There have only been, well, a few such cases in history. They've never actually changed the outcome of an election. RT's Caleb Moppan now looking at how the losing side may simply be trying to change the rules of the game.
Normally, when the electors get together, no one really pays attention. After all, it's just a formality, rubber stamping the presidential vote, right? Well, not this year.
It's as bad as it gets for the electors. They are being bullied into changing their votes, accused of failing to fulfill their duties, and Democrats are calling for the vote to be postponed, or even for the college to be scrapped altogether. Celebrities made this video to increase the pressure on electors.
Republican members of the Electoral College, this message is for you.
The Electoral College was created specifically to prevent an unfit candidate from becoming president.
I'm not asking you to vote for Hillary Clinton.
But it should certainly be someone you consider especially competent.
You have position,
The authority,
and the opportunity to go down in the books as an American hero
who changed the course of history.
Our founding fathers built the Electoral College to safeguard the American people from the dangers of a demagogue.
To protect us from the dangers of a demagogue, the reason normally given is to ensure that smaller states get a voice. But it seems like a lot of things are up for reinterpretation in 2016. Is it time to get rid of the Electoral College? Well, we decided to take to the streets of New York and find out what people think.
Nothing bad came out of it so far, so why change it?
Yeah, I mean,
and the founding father had an idea to put it in there, like I said, as a valve, just in case.
I definitely believe it should be the popular vote.
Should we get rid of a 200-year-old system over one man?
Yeah, I think it's worth it.
Some things that were made 200 years ago don't work now, and things should be updated as the years go.
I feel like the Democrats are being kind of childish, like, you know, a kid loses the game and so they throw a fit or something.
I want to say, I mean, some people might have that mentality, but the people in Democratic control, the people running the DNC and the power, they're not being childish. They're being devious and underhanded, just like Democrats and Republicans always are.
During the campaign, Democrats really thought they were going to win. Now you have the Democrats doing exactly the same thing that they didn't want Donald Trump to do, which is to attempt to delegitimize the winner. They really need to just stop this. It is not a good direction to go to.
Donald Trump won the U.S. presidential election the same way it's always been won. Usually when people lose, they just try to move on and perhaps learn from the mistakes they made. But it seems like millions of Americans are such sore losers, they've decided they don't want to play by the same rules any longer. Caleb Moppan, RT, New York.
Well, about 6,500 people and counting now have been evacuated from the Syrian city of Aleppo in the first day of the humanitarian operation. That's according to the latest data provided by the Russian Reconciliation Center. RT's Lizzie Phelan is in Aleppo following the evacuation, joining us live now via telephone. Lizzie, hi, Rory here in Moscow. I hope you can hear me okay. Can you give us an update here? What is the latest on the situation on the ground right now?
Hi there, Rory. The evacuation of the last rebels of Aleppo and their families and the remaining civilians in that last rebel pocket of Aleppo has continued this morning, but it looks like there's some problem now. There was more vehicles expected to come out now, but they're not coming. We're waiting for details about what exactly has happened. But over the last 24 hours, there have been several convoys coming out of East Aleppo, those green buses filled with civilians and the families of militants. People also leaving in their own cars. The Russian Reconciliation Center says that yesterday over 6,000 people were evacuated, and they're escorted by Russian military personnel, the Red Cross. They're taken to the western outskirts of the city and onto the rebel stronghold of Idlib, which has already received thousands of militants and their families, militants that have previously surrendered as a result of Syrian army victories elsewhere in the country. Others will be taken onto Turkey. Yesterday, the Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan said that Turkey would take in some of these evacuees from Syria. Other reports say that Turkey is planning to use rebels that have left Aleppo as part of their Operation Euphrates Shield, their military operation against both ISIS forces and the Kurdish forces in Syria. Meanwhile, the UN envoy to Syria, Staffan de Mistura, has spoken. He says that the priority now is to find shelter for Aleppo's displaced with winter coming, and certainly the conditions here are very cold and grim for those thousands of displaced people from Aleppo who are making do with makeshift shelter. So now we're just waiting to find out what exactly is happening with the evacuation, if it's falling through or if it will be continuing as planned.
All right, artist Lizzie Phelan via phone from Aleppo. Thank you. Meantime, people on the ground are welcoming the Syrian forces into liberated parts of eastern Aleppo.
We're standing here on the balcony waiting for the militants to leave the city so we can come home.
We've just watched green buses leaving eastern Aleppo. We hope they will take away all the militants. We are tired of them.
We're so glad that this is happening. We're fed up with the militants, with their shellfire and terror. I hope they will never come back.
We spoke to various analysts about the current humanitarian operation in Aleppo.
I have friends who are in western Aleppo now who tell me what's happening. They tell me that the people who had to flee from eastern Aleppo when they are held by the rebels have terrible stories to tell, and as I understand it, the vast majority of people of Syria are very, very relieved that this looks as though ISIS and ISIS-related groups are being driven out of eastern Aleppo and that people are being free to come out.
It's time for the European leaders and, of course, the American deep state and the American mass media to apologize to the survivors of this terrible Syrian war for what they have subjected the Syrian people to and the Syrian nation.
But while an apology to the Syrian people may not be on the cards, as the previous speaker was alluding to, the European Council President did outline the importance of protecting all civilians leaving Aleppo.
We will exert pressure on other global players who are present in Syria using all available diplomatic channels. The aim is clear: the immediate opening of humanitarian corridors to allow aid into Aleppo and for civilians to be evacuated safely under neutral international supervision. There must be full and unrestricted access for all medical personnel and aid workers. The protection of civilians is the absolute priority.
The Western governments that have been hell-bent on regime change in Syria, they've got all their cards on the table and they have to double down and say this is the fall of Aleppo. It's insanity. It's when we see the people escaping captivity and running towards the safety and the medical assistance provided by the Syrian government and even the Russian government. This is safety and this is security. They know this. This is why they're celebrating. This is why we see people dancing in the streets.
This is RT International. Thanks for joining us so far. It is the second and final day of President Putin's visit to Japan for bilateral talks. He just wrapped up a press conference with his Japanese counterpart. The details coming your way after the break.